Hey, this is Vu, and this is going to be some cool plays that pros know, but you probably didn't. And we'll start here on Inferno with something that even I didn't know for a long time, and that's that with second oranges, you can actually see people's names pop up through the middle of it. And not only that, but you can actually spam it for full damage through that area. Now, if they're standing, it's the second one up here. If they're crouching, you can actually see through this one as well. You're not going to be able to hit them in the head, but you will still do full damage, or you can always just peek out and pre-fire them because you've got a pretty big advantage. The next one to take a look at is here in alt middle, and you may not have known that, there is glass up here, but there's also glass down here. And one of the ways you can use that is if you have a teammate trying to jump up into window there, you can break the glass as they're jumping up. That'll make a large amount of noise, and it can be quite tough to actually hear that player jumping up if the glass is breaking. The other couple of things on Inferno is, first off, you can actually head over to the haystack here and peek from behind haystack. This is something most experienced players probably already know. However, this can get you some free gimmicky kills if you're playing lower ranked opponents, and it still is usable at high rank as well. The other thing, this is going to be the most useless thing I've shown in this series. You can spam through this wall here, but only with SMGs. With a rifle or even with an AWP, you can't actually spam through this wall. It will not go through, but with an MP9, it's apparently got a whole lot of penetration power. And the final thing to show just on Inferno that is that there's actually no skybox up above this angle here. So as a B rotator, you can occasionally help your teammates out by throwing deep flashes over. They're probably not going to blind your opponents anywhere near sight, but if your teammate in arch is smoked off, you can throw that flash for him to push through, and it'll work very effectively. Here on Mirage, we've got a few things as well. First off, to retake from CT, a lot of people just throw flashes up like that. The actual best way to do it is to throw a flash up like this. That's going to actually bounce out and over and give almost no time for your opponents to react to it, and it should get you some kills. One other thing on the A site is that you can actually see through default. You can notice it right about here, but if you're in a clutch scenario, this can sometimes be relevant if you're holding a spot like this and someone starts to walk across default. You can actually see it as it happens and easily pre-aim the correct position. And just a simple PSA, when it comes to jumping on top of Firebox, it's actually incredibly easy. Just make sure you exaggerate crouching before jumping as you make your way over, and you jump off of right about here. So if I move forward, crouch, and then jump, it's going to be very easy to jump on top. You can do it from the other side as well. On the other side, it's a little bit easier to do more intuitively. On the B side of the map here, one people think is that you have to jump to get up on this ledge here. You actually just step right onto it if you come to this portion of the box. You can step right up and then just jump once to get to the very top. It's very easy to do. Don't just be jumping around like a moron. As well, something a lot of people didn't know is you can spam straight through this wall here on towards Catwalk, and it actually does a pretty reasonable amount of damage if you line it up correctly. So we're going to head on to Dust 2 here, and the first two things I'll show you are actually not really map relevant. However, I'll show you them here on Dust 2 regardless. The first one is that you can very consistently get smokes to land in the air if you hit a player in a Molotov. So you can throw a Molotov at a player, lands on the ground, hit them with a molly, and that smoke will always land in the air. Now this is a bit odd to actually do because your teammate is going to take about 20 damage. However, you can make it work a little bit more effectively by banking a molly off the wall and then hitting them with the smoke, and they only take 1 to 3 points of damage when you do that, so you actually can use this to your advantage in some way, shape, or form. So for the map specific stuff, we'll start with a way to smoke Xbox on the fly while fast catting, which can be fairly important. You're going to drop down into fast cat here, aim right around this area, and then release when you're near the boxes. You've got to get this based on feel to a certain extent, and it should work fairly well once you do it, and it'll land very very quickly to allow you to cross cat safely. Now, the other thing that's kind of cool to actually look at is a nade to nade smoke off B tunnels. If you throw it between the top of this B sign and the wall here, and you just aim like that, that's going to put out a massive plume of smoke that will actually act as a complete one-way for you to get close B tunnels. Especially, it works very well if there's an opper towards the back plat here. He won't be able to see a thing until you're jumping out through the nade smoke. Unfortunately, I've been told that I'm going to ruin someone's CS career if I throw this one way, so hopefully you get some use out of it. If you get into this angle here, crouch and then right click a smoke like this. This is a ridiculously strong one way, not only for this angle, but also you can play it from on top of the box. If you saw, I could see everything clearly there, and on the other side, I can't see anything. Again, you can also use it from on top of the box, and you will get a large number of kills with this one way. Just as a quick interlude, I want to let you know we're going to be giving away my dignity for this video. All you have to do to enter is comment and let me know how much dignity you think I have left, and we'll be doing the drawing for this giveaway probably never. Yeah, definitely never. Alright, if we move our way on over to Overpass here, there's a few plays that are pretty gimmicky, but they can be very helpful. And the first ones are all spams. So one of the most really odd spams that nobody really knows about, as far as I can tell, is this spam here, which is going to spam up into bank. And it's not going to do an incredible amount of damage per hit, but it'll do about 15 damage if you hit them in the head. And if you line it up with an op, you're actually going to be able to hit them for 70 plus damage in the body, which is definitely a solid amount of damage. And then you can also spam through default, which is something people are really starting to realize, but you can absolutely spam that with an op. And if you get it perfect, you can spam it with a rifle as well, but honestly, probably not even worth going for because the odds are not that high. As well, there's another thing that a lot of people don't know. You can actually spam through this wall here into connector. If you get all the way on the left here, there's a little line here that's a little bit tough to see. That's going to spam that right side corner. It's not the most useful spam of all time, but it certainly is something that can occasionally end up helping you out just to have known. Now, the other cool things on Overpass are primarily utilities. So you've got the Nade King flash here towards SWAT. You can throw that in a bunch of different ways, but it's just going to land out behind SWAT so that it'll blind a lot of people on this side or, you know, out here as well, depending on how deep you throw it. It's a pretty gimmicky smoke that I kind of made up myself, but if you right click a smoke from down here, it's actually going to be a ridiculous one way. Now, of course, this is kind of useless as your opponents have no real reason to be peeking out on that angle if they know you're one-waying it, but sometimes people do peek out, and that one way is incredibly tough to see through if you can get it thrown. The other utility that's somewhat interesting, you can flash for your teammates B with a flash right over this left wall here that's actually going to land right over here. So if your teammates are on mound, it'll blind them, but it's much more likely to blind your opponents, and you can also adjust it to land more like this if you want as well, depending on where your teammates are playing. Alternatively, you can throw a very similar support flash from the right up there behind A, or you can throw it from this side as well. It'll just be a little bit less effective if you just do something like run, jump, throw from over here, and it'll land way high up behind your teammates if they're fighting on A. Now, the really cool thing on Overpass that I left for last is the default molly from B site. Now, how useful is this one? I don't know. Actually, I do know it's not very useful at all, but you can actually get a jump throw molly that lands on top of default from B site. I imagine maybe in some sort of clutch situation that could be something that works out, but so Nuke as a map is a little bit less popular. However, it has some of the cooler little plays that most people don't know about. And to start with, you have this kind of bend tet angle here. Crouching, it's very effective. Standing up, you can try and get a headshot, and it's a little bit easier to drop while you're standing, but it's very hard to see your head in these specific angles, and you can use them to your advantage. You also have a very interesting angle here below heaven, where it doesn't seem that great. I mean, it's a cool off angle, but from here, you're actually dealing with both heaven and hell, because you can actually see their shadow if they're moving up above heaven. The only problem is, if they do this perfectly, like they were to know you were there, they can hug this wall and then back up and cross out, and that will actually prevent you from seeing their shadow the entire time. So if they specifically counter strat you, Stiko, I'm looking at you, then they can actually deal with that. However, more realistically, this is actually a very cool angle. Next, there's a cool way you can actually molly towards second vent from inside of Squeaky. Now, most people would just peek out and throw a molly directly from here. However, you can actually molly second vent from here off of this first vent very easily, and that'll actually land perfectly because it puts them in the fire even longer than they would like to if you were to throw it directly in the corner. Now, the coolest thing on this map that you may not have seen before is this thing right here. You can actually jump on top of this little ledge and muse it to move out here. Now, I'm not sure if this is technically legal, however, it is incredibly effective in general, as this is not an angle anyone's ever going to be expecting you to play. You can easily catch people off guard from a variety of different angles, and if they come below you, they're never going to look right up. On Train, there's a few less things on the majority of other maps, but there are some cool things to know. The first one is that you can actually spam directly into ladder from above, and you can get some decent lineups to specific angles if you actually try your hardest. So, of course, this is a decent angle to spam if you want as well. There's a lot of different spams you can have, you just need to figure them out. One other thing you can do is you can actually molly default from inside of ladder with the glass broken, aimed down from the box till here, and that's actually going to molly directly on top of a standard default plant from inside of ladder in safety. Now, another way to deal with the bomb planter on this map is you can actually spam their feet directly under the bomb train here. This one is a little bit finicky because you're not really getting too far forward. However, sometimes you can hear them plant near the middle of the bomb train, and you can definitely catch a kill, as this will do full damage to anyone standing on the other side. And interestingly enough, you can actually see their name, so you can kind of scan under here to try and catch people if they're trying to play it cool. Anyways, thanks for watching, and I hope this helped.